of the 5th edition. Join our various gaming groups as we play the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And maybe just hang out and chat about gaming in general. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, assigned to Ragnarok Story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Hey guys, Jim here with Creative Play and Podcast Network. It is day 13 of the RPGaDay 2024. Now for the 9th year, tag everything that you love with hashtag RPGaDay2022 as we talk about different things that we love about our RPGs, because there are so many things to love at our tabletop RPGs. And joining me today is...
Kelly!
And Justin.
Thank you for joining me today, guys. So as we get this knocked out, the topic of the day is how would you change the way you started RPGing? Anybody want to dive on that sword?
I'll go. I mean, I wouldn't change a whole heck of a lot because we were just a few kids, kid from the neighborhood who says, hey, you know, I have this game. You guys want to play it? And it was me, my twin sister, and my brother, and the boy from the neighborhood. And so it was, you know, it was very nice. It was, you know, kind of, hey, we're like learning something all this together. What I might have changed is probably, I wish I had been less timid about gaming and maybe sought out additional, you know, gaming influences. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, I was very shy. Oh my God, I was so shy. I had a lot of difficulty talking to people. Both my sister and I did because, you know, I guess, you know, as a twin, we didn't have to learn how to make friends like other kids did because we always had our best friend. So we realized in high school we had an issue talking with people and we're like, we got to fix that. And we did. But I would have wished I had thought of that when I was a lot younger, because then I could have branched out more, I think. Other than that, you know, I would have been less afraid to go into the, you know, other RPG community, but I stayed pretty inclusive at that point in time. I mean, I was pretty young too, so I don't mind too much, but I would have liked to have been less timid about it. But that's, you know, just because I could have had a much richer experience, I think. But that's about the only real thing I would change. Of course, it made me my brother not playing, you know, being allowed to play a chaotic evil character in a group of goods. You know, put a foot down on that one would have been nice.
That's a totally different topic there.
Indeed.
How to deal with your Wolverine at the game table. Everybody's got one somewhere.
There are ways.
There's a reason why I do not play games. I mean, there are certain games, board games, I will not play to this day because of my brother. You cannot come at me with Risk or those types. No, I will never play it ever, ever, ever. Emotionally scarred.
Well, I can say, in all seriousness, that the way I got started in all of this was good. It was friends just hanging out. Nobody was particularly backbiting, and the DM who taught me had a very structured approach to the whole thing. And if if I hadn't had that structured learning environment for the first 2, 3, 4 game sessions, that might be the thing that I would say I would do differently today. But since I had that experience from the start, I don't feel like there really is anything I would change. I sat there and the whole thing started innocently enough one winter night when the GM in question comes over to me and hands me an RPG book, and he says, "Here, you might like this." And then he goes off to do whatever, and I sat there and I thumbed through the book, and I pretty much got it almost immediately. And let's fast forward a month later, and I was hooked. That was a very straightforward thing. The only thing that realistically, now I'll date myself here. This was basically the very, very late 1970s, and so there was no internet. So there were no automated dice rollers. There were no websites where you could have random NPC generation. There were none of those things. But having said that, I love having all of the internet support stuff today. I almost can't function without it because it is so handy. But the technology just wasn't there at the time, so it's not realistic to say that that's what I would change. So I will say, just simply put, that my experience getting started was so good that I wouldn't want to change it.
Excellent.
Yeah. And by the way,
I concur.
I totally agree, and I do have to throw it out there that we are living in a wondrous age of RPGs, because not only can you go to creators' YouTube channels, their Twitches, their blogs, you can go to your other gamers and see different GMs all over the world running the same game system or a different game system in different styles. Because the one thing that, if I could go back, there's two things I would probably change if I could. The first one being getting outside our comfort zone in our group, because when we started, same as you, back in the day, there was no big internet. There was no really reaching out. There was getting maybe Dragon Magazine and reading the articles and reading the ads in the back, and game stores didn't really exist back then as such a thing. There was like a shelf in the comic book shop that had RPG games. But I would definitely change back then of being more open as a gamer. Because remember, back then in our day, we didn't really talk about if you knew, you looked at somebody and you said the right words and you knew that they were a gamer too. But if they didn't, you basically backed down from the game talk, So being more open about being a gamer, because basically, growing up, we had the clique of gamers, and wasn't until later on did people realize, oh, you mean there was another gaming group in the same town? You mean there's another gaming group in the same comic book shop? It's because we didn't game in public. A lot of people, it was the dirty little basement secret.
If I hadn't been so timid, I could have opened up to a whole bunch of, more.
And the more is the best part. Like with conventions, like we have RingCon coming up. One of the best things of going to conventions is getting to sit at different game tables with different players and different GMs, and just absorbing the likeness and differences of the different game groups. Because you can pick up so much as a GM by playing with other GMs too. Because all of a sudden you realize, oh, I didn't think I could do it that way. I didn't realize I could look at a player and ask the player the question they just asked me as a GM. When a GM gives you that beautiful double question with the question of, what do you think is your character? So that way, you totally basically let your player fill in the blank and input into the setting, which is always great. So it's one of those of getting to play with other people earlier in my life, because, granted, there wasn't a lot of gaming cons and stuff back then, I mean, there was the great and almighty Gen Con, but who could drive to the center of the U.S. to go to that back then, And my second point is that I would change about myself in my early days is kind of what Kelly touched on, trying different RPGs. For the longest time, when I started RPGing, it was just one setting book, one system, and there was that whole, not until somebody threw out the suggestion of let's do something different, giving yourself permission to try something different. That's what I would change, is the try different stuff when I started RPGing, and publicly game more. I mean, I know it's a lot to put yourself out there to publicly game, but pretty much that's what I would suggest to myself, to start openly gaming sooner in my life. Because let's be honest, once we started publicly gaming and realizing everybody out there loves to enjoy gaming, and if they don't, they just need to be introduced to it. Because that's a RPGaDay thing, is introducing people to why we love gaming. Because it is a shared group experience. It's not the art of writing a story yourself. It's a shared collaboration.
That sounds like a good spot to cut.
Mm-hmm. I just figured collaboration was a good spot for me to be quiet, so you can collaborate.
No, I get that. Now here's another good one for you, especially if you're looking for a short segment to record. Is do you know the very first time you gamed out in the open? Because I do actually have an answer for that one.
Ooh, that is a good.
I do too.
That is a good.
I mean, when you say out in the open, I mean like just in a public setting, or
yes, out in the open where passersby can see you. I know exactly when that happened, and the thing is that the game group was I wish we knew more. I wish we knew more people who did this, and I just right then and there and on the spot I said, you really should be careful about what you wish for, because just well, if you've got an idea, I'm willing to hear it. And I said, okay, here it is. And I just said, let's go right over there to that table and let's just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we within relatively short order we had an audience, and even though this was the pre-internet world, people were still exchanging phone numbers and dorm room numbers, and the next thing you know, stuff happened.
It goes from being your table group to an actual gaming group of
community.
Yeah. And that's the huge part of gaming, is the community feel, because it's everybody likes to have people that like similar things, and gaming groups, it's funny how so many different gamers have so many things in common,
And the fact that they can be in such close proximity to each other and never know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it back in the early days of the 90s when, our game, one of the game companies we played with started publicly posting where people were across the country. And all of a sudden people are like, what? There's this many gaming groups in my town that I don't even know about? Alrighty, guys. Thank you for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. Please follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/CPPN to never miss a show or stream.